Oh. I blame Daniel. He never pointed.
He clicked. He clicked. It was going.
Welcome to our unboxing episode. There's about 20 seconds there that we just hanging out.
When it says 10, you're supposed to start talking. That's when you do your thing.
I never got the
He
point.
clicked. Everyone did their thing. Oh, man. That's awesome.
Where were you?
I was waiting on you. I always
Oh,
follow.
Goodness gracious.
Hey, but you know what? You want to hear it? Can I tell you something?
What?
I'm so excited about this episode now that we finally have it going, because this is an exciting one. This is a huge milestone that we dreamt about it. We thought this day would never come, and then it came, and so we are just so stoked and so happy about it.
Yeah, I'm fresh off of amusement park riding at Universal Studios. Bo's back from the beach, so we're kind of freshly united after 2 or 3 weeks away from each other. And this is exciting. While Bo was on vacation the first week, I sent him a picture and I said, but don't worry, we're not going to open this until you get back in town.
That's right.
So, and I'm so happy we get to do this with you guys. Now, here's the first clue, because I was kind of shocked. As you can see, we're at 161,000 subscribers now. This is our award for reaching 100,000 subscribers. And I'm like, wow, it seems
It's a little behind, it seems
a little disconnected. But if you know, there's a channel of a father-son who actually got a behind-the-scenes tour. I thought it was quite interesting that when they randomly chose an award that was being printed that day, they followed that person and then went and looked, and they were at around 150 to 160. So I think this is just normal, and I think it's important to share that with you guys because there's a lot of videos that kind of say they have these things, but I don't know if they're official.
They're
I think
actual. They're
this is the
ones.
actual legit. So before I get into the unboxing and then even give you all the metrics that go into this award, I kind of wanted to have a quick recap. They'll only take a few seconds. Yeah, so we had the team put this together, and this is interesting. It shows how far we've come. I started podcasting in 2006, and y'all have seen this if you were part of the 100,000 subscriber celebration we had earlier in the year. But this was my first cover art thumbnail that we put out there on iTunes, and
it's still just unbelievable.
I don't know what I was thinking.
It's really good. It's really
Monopoly
good.
board because hey, Life and Monopoly they're integrated. The Wall Street Journal because I am a
Financial advice.
true financial. I think I even have the Financial Times there, and then I put an apple. That's a little Easter egg to show that I have the heart of an educator. And then we, of course, have the fancy-dancy microphone to show that I am a legit podcaster. So that's the first thumbnail. We then progressed. Fast forward to 2017. We had our first YouTube. This was our first thumbnail. And
as soon as we got here, I was like, Brian, what are we doing here? Because it is true. Back in 2006, when this whole idea was conceived, I was not around then. I was not part of the original inspiration. So it made sense that I wasn't on the original thumbnail. I wasn't playing against you in Monopoly. I'd have smoked you had I been. Yeah. And I was like, Daniel, we ought to put up there, a picture of our very first episode. And this is what Daniel came with. Yeah. This is what he came with to illustrate our very first YouTube episode.
Well, I like it because I was given, homage to the urban cowboy look with that shirt. We even have the pearl button. And then still same fancy-dancy microphone, but to look like, because, think about it. Who do we have to look up to but Dave Ramsey is still wearing headphones in all his videos. So as soon as we went to YouTube, transition from podcasting to YouTube, I was like, well, if Dave Ramsey's wearing headphones, I think all true professionals probably wear headphones. After doing this show now for years without the headphones, I don't know why Dave is still wearing the headphones either, but we had headphones, and this shot's even worse because if we draw this shot out to the next slide where you see the better looking part of this, Mr. Bo Hansen coming on scene. We were hosting a high school debate every week.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. We had the podiums. For some reason, we thought that would be a great idea, and we decided instead of talking to the audience, we would face each other as though we were in opposition to one another. And this actually wasn't in the studio. This was in the corner of our conference room at the building. So it's man, what a long way we have come.
It makes me wonder if we're going to look at this video in this studio because we know we're moving. It's kind of bittersweet. We'll be moving in January, February, somewhere in that range. to another new studio, well, we look back at this and kind of make fun of how this is all structured. So you never know. But we are super excited that you guys are joining us. Thank you for going on this journey to helping us reach 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, to now quickly approaching 200,000. And even for those that write us still, that you found us in 2006, 2007, 2008, I feel so blessed to be on this journey because it started as a passion project. I really did. I can remember what all the things that went into me starting the first podcast, even including the iPod that's right over my shoulder. That is the original iPod that kind of inspired this whole thing. Got my first iPod in 2005. And guys, this was all just started to educate you because I felt like we had minimums as wealth managers, but everybody was getting taken advantage of who didn't have access to good advice. So I wanted to go teach, I wanted to educate, and then it has turned into so much more than I ever could have envisioned. I had no idea it was going to turn into the greatest marketing idea because that was not the passion or the purpose at the time, but it has. You guys have rewarded us, and that's where the abundance cycle came from. So let's talk about this award. First of all, I felt like I'm going to turn into Carrot Top here for a second and do some prop comedy. You see so much fake information about these awards. I felt like let's go ahead and give you guys the true stats on this thing. So first, let's weigh it. So I had Mrs. Marcy's postal scale. It's calibrated now.
Okay.
This thing weighs 2 pounds, 13 ounces. So that's the first part. 2 pounds, 13 ounces.
Got it. So not incredibly heavy, but still
By the way,
sturdy.
if you want other proof that we have become a big deal, I asked for a tape measure, or a ruler actually is what I yelled for, and this is what Reby hands me. I don't know where this got approved, how this showed up in our possession, but we have a Craftsman 25-foot, I don't know if
Heavy
somebody's
duty.
moonlighting
Heavy-duty
and doing home repairs. It's even got our name Abound Wealth on it. This cracks me up. So height-wise, this thing is right at 13 1/4 inches.
Okay.
Width, it's right at 12, so it's a foot. So, I mean, we could probably put our foot up to this bow, and it would equal.
Well, you're measuring the box, not the actual
This is
award
the box,
itself,
so
just the
let's-
box
let's-
that it was
let's kind
delivered
of-
in.
let's,
Now, as he cuts open into this, I was under the impression that it would make a lot more sense for us to have scissors. We work in an office environment. Instead, Brian decides that he is going to walk to the kitchen and grab the largest butcher's knife that we have in our little knife kit in the kitchen, and that's how he wanted to unwrap this package.
This is one of those interesting tab ones, so get to see the real skill.
Man, could you imagine if he cut himself on live? I was gonna say live television, on live YouTube. Oh, see, and you're slicing my way. That seems awfully aggressive.
Let's go give in a minute. Let's go give. Those things with the tab, they always, when you're opening packages.
Yeah, most good things.
Oh, there it is.
Deferred gratification, things that are the most worth having or worth waiting for.
Here it
So
goes.
for those of you wondering why it's taking them so long to get in
Okay,
here.
I'll open this sideways so it's kind of beneficial for all of us.
Oh, look at that.
So first they give you some black felt. I mean, I'd probably, back in the old days, I would have probably put this
We'd
up and called it
repurposed
acoustic tile because I'd have bought it on Amazon for a few bucks. Oh, look at this. Congratulations on your subscriber milestone. We are honored to take part in recognizing your achievement and want your experience to be exceptional. This award was inspected and packaged with great care by Rick.
Hey, Rick, thank you so much for sending us our award. That's very
If
nice
your
of you.
award was damaged during shipping, or if you have any questions, please contact us at, and it gives an email address.
Could you imagine if we opened it and it was broken in half because we didn't. Maybe we
So-
should have checked this before we did it.
So here's a letter, official YouTube letter. This is pretty cool.
We'll frame that. We'll put that somewhere.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. So I probably ought to handle this. Probably should wash my hands. Some 100,000 subscribers. Just how far have you come? If each one of your subscribers were a light year, they could take you from one side of the Milky Way to the other. Well,
Wow.
we know that you're not a light year, but that's okay. That's far. And it's why today we're so excited to celebrate your special YouTube journey with you. Not only have you brought a unique voice and style to the world, you've also created valuable connections and built a community along the way. In that spirit, YouTube is proud to present you with the Silver Creator Award, which celebrates your hard work and incredible achievement. Congratulations on this amazing milestone. Just one of many that we hope will follow in the future. After all, there are countless others out there who have yet to discover your passion and dedication. Whether they come to your channel to learn something new or just for a laugh, A whole new audience is waiting for you to inspire them just as your growing community continues to inspire you. We can't wait to see what you do next, and we'll be with you every step of the way. Yours sincerely, and Susan, CEO of YouTube.
Wow,
look at that.
That's a big deal.
That's actually.
Is that actually signed?
That's printed. I mean, I would lick it and try to spread it,
We're
but I
gonna
think
frame that. Let's not
we're
do
gonna
that.
frame it. So I think that's printed. Though.
Hey, let's show them the. Let's pull that part out.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Please don't drop it. Man, again, what if he just dropped it? Just absolutely shattered.
Man, there's
it,
even more stuff here. So, okay. So should I pull it out of the plastic? Is that going?
Yeah, you want to. The people want to see it.
Once again, she'll probably wash my hands.
So
Oh,
on
wow,
there
that
says,
thing, that's shiny.
it says presented to the Money Guy Show for passing 100,000 subscribers. That's pretty awesome.
That is beautiful.
That is a cool
oh,
thing.
look, it's got the 2 hangers on the back, so it should be easy to hang.
You know, I think if we, if we have like a new studio coming our way or something, Reeves, maybe we should make sure we hang this up in the new studio. What do you think about that? Sound like a good idea? Awesome.
Oh, that's really cool.
Man, so I don't know about you, Brian. I think it's pretty awesome. YouTube sent this to us, acknowledged the growth. But again, I think it goes without saying, we would not. You still with us? You still here?
Yeah, it's just that's cool. It's a mirror back there in the play button. You can actually check out your hair. I mean, this is legit. This is cool.
It's
Hey,
awesome.
wait a minute. I feel like, hang on. Daniel, here, I'm just going to give this to you so I don't screw it up. So, hang on, and then we'll move on to questions. I know, but I just, hang on.
He's measuring it.
So this thing is 9 3/4 wide.
Can you imagine people at home with their notepads like
and
writing
still
down the
12
taking
inches
notes
tall.
on
So
this?
it's 12 inches tall, 9 3/4. So now when you make your fake play button, you'll have somebody. Oh, hang on, one minute. Daniel, let me give you this. Oh,
You just dropped a
Rick's
business
card
card.
just went away. Hang on. So Rick's card. There you go.
Oh, and you gotta
hang on.
weigh,
Gotta weigh it
also.
so that when they make the fake ones, it's 1 pound 13. You could just say 14 ounces because it's 13.9. So 1 pound 14 ounces is how much these things
I
weigh.
love it. I think it's awesome.
Wow, that's pretty. Ooh, I spittled.
Okay,
Spittle
that's
all over.
now
Here you
that's
go, Dan.
pretty gross.
Daniel, here you go. There you go.
Well, here's what I think is amazing. We would not be able to do this. We would not have gotten the
Here you go,
award. We would have not hit the milestone without you guys tuning in, without you checking out the content we put out there.
Daniel.
We
Here you go. That's the most dangerous one. One more, Daniel.
We cannot tell you how much we appreciate and how much we value that. Thank you for letting us be a part of your journey. Obviously, we want to do this show for you guys. It's not so that we can get awards. It's not so that YouTube will send us plaques. We want to make sure that we're helping you take your finances to the next level and continue to make good financial decisions. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for telling your friends and family about us. And thank you for subscribing so that we could even get this award and share it with you today.
I think it's bigger than that. You go. Woo! That's a Rick, two claps and a Ric Flair. Because, I mean, I'm telling you guys, I think it's a big deal. I mean, I don't want this because I think this is only the beginning. Y'all have no idea how much I can't wait to I've reached this milestone. I'm so happy that we're ready to reach 1 million. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm just as excited, probably this close to Bo's excitement, but we couldn't do it without you guys.
I don't know. That's the first time we've ever done two claps and Ric Flair on camera, which is awesome. So let's talk about another thing that we like to do here, right? So obviously we do shows where we share financial content with you. We want to make sure that we are answering your questions. We're loading you up with as much financial information as you can possibly hold. So if you have a question, get in the chat right now. We have the team off on the periphery getting the questions in front of us. And we just want to load you guys up. We want to help you make better decisions with your money and continue to grow to hopefully a level of abundance that you were trying to achieve. So with that, let's jump right in. You ready?
I guess.
You guess? All right, cool. Perfect. I guess. Nailed it. That's fun.
Poor Reeves.
So this first question is from Ada. And he or she said, I'm saving money to invest in real estate. Should I put the money in an index fund until I have enough? And should I max out my 401k before I do that? So it does not sound like she or he is buying their first primary residence. It sounds like this is for investment opportunities. This is for buying, I'm going to assume, rental real estate or something like that. And so 2 questions. Should they put it in some sort of liquid investment vehicle until they have enough, what they call enough. And then where does like saving for true retirement accounts, like 401k, where to fit? How do they navigate
Yeah,
that?
you did a good job because there's actually several questions with that one question. The first is, where does real estate fit into the financial order of operations? And look, this is going to go against some of the people out there on, other content creators that are selling their systems, that they make their money by selling their systems, and they have not been through a bear market where they don't realize what an extrovert that volatility is, because the problem is, as I've shared with you, on other shows as well as this one, is that bad news travels in packs. Like I said, these things misery loves company because it's all an extrovert. And the fact that you'll have volatility of the financial markets, meaning the stock market, you'll have unemployment reach highs. You'll also have the real estate market struggle to retain value to the point that people get scared. And then, like, I'll even tell you, the pandemic of last year that's still kind of ongoing is that we've had some ripple effects of, I saw on Twitter just the last few days, there was a landlord who basically just lost their house because their tenants hadn't paid rent for going on 12 months now, because part of the...
And they're just having to float it.
They're just having to float it, and they can't afford it, and I think that's where a lot of people who get into real estate, it is the squeeze of leverage debt is beautiful while it's all working for you, because you put down a small down payment and then you get the full compounding growth on the full value, fair market value of the assets. It looks like an incredible thing because you can put down just a small down payment, get outsized returns, and because of the leverage impact, it multiplies that benefit. But that multiplication also works against you when you do reach bad times. So that's why I always tell people, if you're going to get into real estate, you have to have deep enough pockets that you can weather whatever comes your way. We even had, I know we just bought that commercial building.
That's right.
That we're moving the business studio and everything to, and we sought the counsel of somebody our current landlord, who's done incredibly well with commercial real estate. He says, boys, I'm just going to ask you one question. When it gets as bad as it could possibly go,
can you still handle it?
Can you still handle it? Do you have enough cash? Do you have deep enough pockets that you can swing it? And I think that is timeless, brilliant advice, no matter who you are, because two things. Real estate's not truly passive. All people I know that are very successful in real estate, they're working hard.
They're working at it.
It's including our landlord, including other clients that we work with. So you're going to be busy in it anyway, but you have to have deep pockets because to weather all the storms. That leads to, where does it fall in the financial order of operations? Go to moneyguy.com/resources. You too can download this free deliverable. I consider real estate to fit into steps 7 and 8 because this is hype. This means that you have now reached a level of success that you have deep enough pockets that your retirement probably is on track. You have liquidity with savings and emergency reserves that you can weather the storm that comes your way. And it didn't neglect the free employer match. It didn't neglect the tax-free benefit of Roth IRAs, health savings accounts, and maxing out your employer retirement plan. All those things were respected, taken into account, as well as the 2 emergency reserves with step 1 and 4. You are ready to rock and roll at 7 and 8. So that's the first answer, is if you're trying to figure out max out retirement or real estate, I'm going to tell you max out retirement because you haven't made it to the steps of financial order of operations. So then say you have. Now you're trying to figure out, hey, I'm going to have to build up, just like we bought this commercial building. It took years of income and savings to actually have the down payment to make that happen. Here's where that falls into. Is it anything that you need to touch in the next 5 years? Doesn't need to be in any financial product like the stock market, the bond market. It needs to be pretty liquid.
Yeah, now I'll give you a little bit of a pass here, because I know for a lot of folks, when they are thinking about investing in real estate, they don't often have a specific piece of real estate targeted, right? So because obviously, if you're thinking about buying real estate, but you've got to save for 2 years to have enough to buy it, odds are it won't be for sale at that time. So a lot of folks say, hey, at some point in the next few years, I want to invest in real estate, so I'm going to save separately for that goal. If your goal likely could stretch beyond 4 to 5 years, I don't think there's anything wrong with sort of a middle-of-the-road approach where you are building up your cash, but if that real estate purchase might not happen for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it's kind of silly right now to let cash just be sitting at relatively low interest rates, not doing anything.
True.
So I think that you could do a mix. Still build up your cash, but you could have a very low-cost index fund or conservative balance fund where you're building those dollars over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And that way, it's a best of both worlds approach.
Here's something. I'll just give my own personal experience share on this, is that I know when we wanted a commercial building for this business, I got to a point where I'd already made it through the steps 1 through 9 on the financial order of operations. I did let my I did a balance. Exactly what you said is that I let my cash build up higher than what was required in steps 1 and 4, emergency reserve side. But then I also didn't want to have just cash go so big that it was sitting there and not making anything. So I had gone a balanced approach where what I did was I chose a ceiling for how high I wanted my cash to get. That I was like, anything above and beyond this level, and it was way up there.
There's no point.
There's no reason in keeping that much cash. So I started dollar cost averaging more money into the investments, but I kept that because that cash reserves that I had reached, so you can customize this to your own situation, not only takes into account your emergency reserves, but also an opportunity pot.
That's
So
right.
in case the right piece of property, in case we hit a bear market or something where you can go and take advantage of that, I wanted to put a cap on how high even I wanted that opportunity pot to be. So then I would create a systematic investment plan above and beyond that. So I think it pays a lot of respect to what you did. But you have to have a plan that you're thinking about before you go into all this, because if you don't have a plan, I just don't see how you eat this elephant when the time and opportunity comes your way.
No, great question. All right, here's our next question. This is from Lucas. Lucas says, my wife has 6% student loans. We could pay them off in a year with our income. We are in our upper 20s. Should we still invest and pay minimums on this debt? So upper 20s, 6% student loans. How do they go about thinking about whether they should pay off the student loans or pay the minimum and invest the rest?
We've actually done a lot of work on this, and we even had some slides, but since it's a Q&A show, we don't have this. So go find some of our other content on debt specifically, because I know we've talked about student loan debt. And I'm going to do this because here's the analytics to what we've kind of figured out, and Bo can put some color to this too. Is that we tried to figure out what the risk-free rate of return was historically.
Sure.
We tried to figure out what's the premium spread or risk spread that you get from putting your money to work by actually investing it. And we came up with kind of a laddered approach by decade, meaning 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds. Where did that shake out, Bo?
Yeah, so if you look at kind of historical numbers, assuming that there aren't unique things in your situation that would change what your expected rate of return are, meaning liquidity issues or that sort of thing, we think that realistically, if you're someone in your 20s and the interest on your student loans is above 6%, you should probably prioritize paying off those student loans because that is creeping into the realm of high interest debt. If it's below 6%, the value in your army of dollar bills is so strong that you may be missing a big opportunity to let those dollars grow. If you want to know just how big that opportunity is, go to our website, moneyguide.com/resources, and go look at how powerful are your dollars. And you can see that for someone who's 20, $1 can turn into 88 by the time that they get to age 65. So you don't want to miss out on that opportunity. Well, then, as we age, our expected rate of return decreases. The power in our army of dollar bills goes down. So we think that if you're someone in your 30s and your student loans are above 5%, you should probably prioritize paying them off. If they're below 5%, you could consider investing and continue to pay the minimum. Once you get into your 40s, the number drops to 4%. And then by the time you get into your 50s, we don't really think you should have any student loan debt unless for some reason maybe now you're starting to take on student loans for the kids or you have something like that. But even if you're doing that, you want to make sure you have your financial foundation in place before you start taking on debt for a junior to start going to college.
There's also, we're in a unique time right now where student loan interest is waived until September of this year.
Yep.
So if you're trying to figure out, do I go get employer match or, firm up some things financially, now especially where all of the interest, even though the stated interest rate is 6% on that student loan debt, there's a good chance that a lot of that is waived until after September. So take advantage of what some of the short-term things are going into it, and then Bo just gave the long-term perspective. Balance those two things and navigate it with the financial order of operations, and I think you'll be ready to tackle all things that come your way.
Love it. All right, this next question is from Chad. Chad says, I'm hoping to retire early. I'm currently 43, and I want to retire by 55.
Okay.
Should we stop contributing the maximum to our pre-tax 401k, so they're maxing out the 401k on the pre-tax side, and ramp up our bridge account investing? So when he says bridge account, he's talking about his third bucket, his after-tax account. If he's thinking about an early retirement at 55, is that something that he should do, or how should he approach making that decision?
Yeah, Chad, you're actually, and this is what I love about it when we design the financial order of operations, you are reaching that level of 7, hyperaccumulation, step 7, and the fact that you are thinking about the 3 bucket strategy. You do have 3 pots of money that you deal with. You have your after-tax, which is your taxable brokerage accounts. You have your tax deferred, which is your traditional 401ks. That's your employer match plus what you put in pre-tax. And then you have your tax-free, which is your Roth IRAs, your Roth 401ks, your Roth 403bs. All those things, you don't get a tax deduction when you put it in, but anything that you do contribute in those Roth accounts will grow completely tax-free when you pull it out. It's nice to have diversification on where your tax location is as well, because it is, especially for somebody who's retiring 55, 50, any of the early retirees, this is great because, then you have a plan of action for the 59 and a half early withdrawal penalties and other things. So I would definitely think that Chad is at the point that he should think about that bridge.
Sure.
But there's a few things to make sure we pay respect to. First of all, how much money does Chad and his family make? Because if you're in the highest of high tax brackets where you're not only paying the 37%, but you're paying the Medicare surcharges and all things, you might, and especially if you add your state income tax, if you live in a high tax state,
It could be costly not to do the
you
401k.
might be shocked to find out that you're paying close to 50% of your, and even more than 50%. I mean, I was shocked to find out on my marginal rate was 37%, but I paid 41% after you put in all the things that the effective rate was actually higher. And I think that happens to a lot of people in high income situations. So if you're in that type of situation, you have no other option but to max out retirement, because you're hoping that you have the ability to manipulate into a lower tax rate at retirement because you won't have as much income coming into it. But I would say somebody who, is in the situation where maybe you're not in the highest tax bracket, at least make sure you're getting the employer match. That's that free money. At least get the $19,500 in basic employer plans, and then start building that bridge account.
And remember, one of the unique things when you retire, if you are an early retiree and you retire at 55, and you have a 401k at the company you are retiring at, you can actually begin drawing funds at age 55 as opposed to 59 and a half. So
That's right.
While you are an early retiree, you might have access to retirement assets more quickly than you would have thought. It's not a hard and fast 59 and a half rule. As with most things in financial planning, what you really want to do is you want to kind of control for uncertainties. We have no idea what the tax environment in this country is going to be 12 years from now. So if you can build up that 3-bucket strategy, it allows you to pick and choose which buckets you pull from, whether you pull from the after-tax bucket if we're in a high-tax environment, or maybe you pull from the 401k if we're in a low-tax environment. Building up those 3 is going to give you maximum flexibility so that you can optimize your financial circumstance through time.
So I feel like the way we answer questions is I'm like the snapper mower that comes through, but then you're like the snapper mower that has the attachment on the back that just gives a much wider cut.
Got it. Okay,
because
got it.
What you just did was I gave the basic 3-bucket strategy, but I left out the 55-year-old exception to 401ks, 403bs. So that was okay. We were covered because you were the implement on the back that just broadened the way we cut that grass.
I am excited to be the
leader.
Well done. Happy to do that. That was a great question, Chad, and congratulations. Can I throw one other thing on now?
Do they even make snapper mowers anymore? I know Briggs and Stratton bought them. By the way, fun fact, Snapper Mowers was headquartered in my hometown of McDonough, Georgia. I don't think it's made anymore, but fun fact.
What I imagine is all 100,000 of our subscribers are sitting home right now saying, Brian, that is a fun fact. Yeah. What an interesting little tidbit. Here's another thing, Chad. You want to make sure you do this right and do this well. If you are planning on an early retirement and you're making some big changes about shifting your status, that might not be a horrible time to think about taking the relationship to the next level, reaching out to a professional financial advisor just to kind of give you a spot check and help you figure out, okay, how do I begin to land this plane? Because again, you only get one good shot at early retirement, and some of the stuff you need to do needs to start happening 5 and 10 years prior. So not a horrible time to seek some professional advice there. Okay, here, this next question is from RKL. And RKL said, how does my pension affect my savings rate? I will have a pension equal to 63% of my final average salary. That sounds amazing. I currently save 20% pre-tax and 3% Roth. I'm 36 years old, and I make $140,000 a year.
Oh, that's a great pension.
Young, high income, fantastic pension, really healthy savings rate. Should RKL change anything, or should he or she change the way they're thinking about retirement?
And what was the age again?
36.
Oh, man. Because I was going to say, because I've shared the story multiple times that I was trying to save early and often so that in my 40s I could take my foot off of the accelerator.
Sure.
And I love hearing about somebody who's obviously a financial mutant, crushing it, but also has the incredible opportunity of having kind of a legacy benefit, like a pension, that is going to be another great
and a 63%
tool in their
pension.
financial planning and financial independence tool belt. So this is kind of turned that instead of toolbox. I said tool belt like he's Batman. But here's what I think is interesting is that this gets into a little more advanced planning and the fact that I still love the 20 to 25% gross income savings rate, but I think that it gets more nuanced when you're trying to figure out what do I need to actually retire to be financially independent, because you'll find as you get deeper into what's your number for financial independence, it's great to use income when you're in 20s and 30s, because you just don't know what your future self is going to look like. It's not like you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, future self, what
How
are you
much am I
going to
gonna
like to
spend in
do
retirement?
when I'm in my late 40s, early 50s, when I think I'm retiring, or even 60s? So that's why we give the guidance in income. I know we get some flack from the FIRE movement on that, but I think as you progress into your planning, it does become, as you're landing the airplane, as we often say, approximately 5 years before retirement, you want to start basing everything off of your living expenses, because you are going to know what yourself looks like 5 years in the future. And so somebody who has a pension that covers 60+% of their current income, first of all, you're already checking the box that when we do a lot of modeling, especially somebody who makes six figures, 60% is going to be extremely powerful, especially if you think about down the road, you probably have access to Social Security plus the Medicare covering your health care costs.
You don't have to save anymore
That
at
is
that point.
way powerful. So it's one of those things where I think you take your living expenses in retirement, your anticipated living expenses, but you're going to subtract out all the given income streams that will be coming your way, including pension, and then what's left of that number is what you now need your portfolio to be able to generate for you. That's how you kind of break this off into different chunks to figure out how successful or what your likelihood of success is going to be in retirement.
So let me play Darth Vader here a little bit, because Brian, you always do a great job of telling our young folks, hey, enjoy the present, live life now, don't be a miser, don't save all of your money and let your life get away from it. And I agree with all of those things. But let's say that RKL goes to this exercise and he's like, man, I'm going to have a 63% pension and all this, and I know how much I think I'm going to spend. So I really only need about a 7 or 8% savings rate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my savings rate down to 7 or 8%, and I'm just going to start spending like a banshee. I think what you're saying is, it'll probably be okay, assuming your numbers are right. But don't mishear and think that you have to do that. My opinion is, if you're doing the things you want to be doing and you're not having to sacrifice so much and you still have a healthy lifestyle, you're still enjoying the present, there's nothing wrong, especially at 36 years old, to be saving aggressively, to be building your wealth more quickly than you need to be building it. Because what that's going to do is, as you get into your 40s and as you get into your 50s, it's going to give you maximum flexibility, maximum options. I don't think that just because the math suggests, I should stop spending money, I should stop saving money, that you should go out and try to find ways to start spending more. Would you agree with that? You're going to fight me on that.
I do, but I've got a caveat that just hit me. If I was doing your financial plan, here's something I would probably go do. Go to PB Pension Benefit Guarantee, pbgc.gov. That's the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. That's the same thing like FDIC insurance, government protection. It's a backstop in case your provider of your pension goes kaput.
Yep.
You know, figure out what the maximum guaranteed benefit, because somebody who's making six figures and has a 62% pension, you're above the PBGC coverage. I would use that number in your calculation instead of your full calculation while you're young. Now, look, 5 years into close to retirement, I think you can use your full pension because you'll be close enough, we'll know the financial solvency of the company. But this far out, use the maximum PBGC benefit as you're backing into formula, because I get nervous. I saw this with Delta.
Yep.
Remember, we're from Atlanta originally. Delta's headquartered in Atlanta. We had a lot of Delta pilots that had six-figure pensions,
Big ones.
great 401ks, and then the 2008 crisis happened, and Delta was like, yeah, I don't think we're going to honor all those pensions the same way. So they did some they kind of shed a lot of that responsibility. And I think a lot of companies are constantly looking for ways. It's just part of our where we are now in the world, that I would just try to put some backstops or conservative assumptions in there so that you don't do, like, because Bo had a great point. I don't want a 36-year-old saying, man, I'm in such a great shape. Let's pull this thing down to 7% from the 20+% that I'm currently at. And then you get there and go, they changed the rules on me. What happened? Let's put some conservative assumptions in there, and that pension benefit guarantee could be a big part of that equation.
And look, this is the fun part of being a financial advisor. We have a lot of clients now who have pensions that are coming in, and between pensions and maybe Social Security, other sources of income, they're like, man, all of my living needs are met. So I have this large 7-figure portfolio over here that I'm not even having to tap. Well, that's great. Well, then they get to think about really exciting things they can do for family trips or once-in-a-lifetime opportunities,
legacy
or
planning.
giving or legacy planning. Again, it affords you opportunities to do a different level of planning. I don't think that that's a bad thing necessarily. Great question. This next question is from Christian. And Christian said, how should we approach advising family members on investing and inheritance? I am hesitant to recommend something like a target date fund with the market at all-time highs. Any suggestions would help. So I have two real questions for you, Brian. How should I think about investing lump sums of money right now when the market's at an all-time high? Question one. And question two, are target date retirement funds always the answer? Is that always the best solution for an investment portfolio?
Well, I think I would handle this. First of all, you have to set expectations when you're trying to, as an educator of the wonderful world of finance. Because I mean, every relative around me or friend, when I find out their kids are good at math, I'm always like, go into the wonderful world of finance. This is the greatest profession in the world, because I just love how the math and the can tell a story. And the first lesson, I think, this is part of deferred gratification. This is part of consistency. Is that if you go into investing, you have to know this isn't hey, I'm going to give $10,000 here, or I'm going to do $5,000 here. This is a behavior, a habit that if you're not willing to give this 20 years to take traction, you're doing it all wrong. And the reason I say it, we don't have this slide in front of us. We've done this slide a bunch of times. I show people on how consistency is rewarded is that when you start investing and creating your army of dollar bills, 5 years into the process, no matter how good the financial markets are doing, you're going to see the lion's share of your money is still what you put in. It's not the growth part of it. Fast forward 10 years into it. And I don't know because I'm doing this off memory, but I think only like 11% of your account value, even 10 years into this, is going to be the growth. It's going to primarily be your contribution to the cause. And a lot of people will get frustrated. They'll be like, man, I keep investing. The market's going up and down. I don't understand. This thing is supposed to create tremendous wealth for my family.
And it just
I'm not
moving
just
slow.
That's when people quit. They quit in year 6. They quit in year 10. And I'm like, no, you got to stay the course, stay consistent no matter what's going on. I don't care if markets are at an all-time high, because guess what? 10 years from now, there's going to be even higher all-time highs, because I just know economic cycles. It cracks me up when I read comments where people go, why would I buy into the financial markets now? We're at all-time highs. I'm like, You're in your 20s.
Just wait.
You're not retiring until you're in your 50s or 60s. If you think it's expensive now, wait until you see where the market's going to be in 10, 15. It's not like this thing is a zero sum where, the price of the S&P 500 can't go over 5,000. No, I mean, that's why when people look at the Dow Jones or some other indicator, I'm like, it's going to 100,000. I mean, and people are shocked when I make those observations. I'm like, it's going to happen at some point. So realize this is a 20-year, because that thing, guys, when I talk about 20 years, 25 years, and 30 years, you start seeing that your account growth is like 60, 70, 80.
Way more than
whereas we know somebody who starts as a 20-something and retires at 65, like 87, 88% of their account value is actually the growth. And that is completely inverse from the first 10 years where 87% is your contribution to it. But you have to give it enough time. That is the most valuable component of the whole discipline, money, and time, which are the three elements of wealth creation. Time is actually the most valuable one, but it's the hardest to see. So that's why I tell people to pay attention to that. So that's the first thing. You got to educate your friends and family on the power of deferred gratification and consistency, staying the course. By the way, here's another little experience share. I buy in almost every week, definitely every month. I'm buying. I'm doing exactly what I'm telling you guys out there in the audience to do. I'm buying index funds every month, no matter what the valuation of the financial markets are. I'm a buyer at all times because I'm still a builder of wealth. I'm not consuming this wealth yet, so I'm buying. So that leads to, if you get your friends and family excited about saving, what do you actually do? Why do we choose target index retirement funds, Bo?
Yeah, so it's a great I don't want to say one size fits all, but a couple sizes fit most is probably a better way to say that. Because when it comes to target date funds, all you really have to answer is one question. When do I think I'm going to need these dollars? So if it's a young person, they might not need to actually access these dollars until they get to age 50 or age 60. So you might want to go buy a target retirement 2050 fund or 2060 fund. What that's going to do is right now, while we're still a number of years away from that, it's going to be more aggressive. It's going to have a higher concentration of stocks and a lower concentration of bonds. But as you move through time, as you get closer and closer to that target retirement date, it's going to do the adjusting and rebalancing for you. So you don't have to go read the Wall Street Journal and figure out what to buy and what to sell and how much to hold and what's happening. All you have to do is focus on, when do I think I'm going to need this money? And if you're still in the savings phase, how much can I continue adding to this pot? So we think that target retirement funds are a fantastic solution up until the point that your portfolio reaches critical mass, where there are some benefits that can be garnered from additional diversification. Not only are you looking at your asset allocation, but maybe now you're also looking at your asset location and different strategies like charitable giving or tax loss harvesting. At smaller account values, at $50, $80, $100, $250,000, $300,000, target retirement fund can probably solve that. At seven-figure levels, at million, $1.5, $2, $3, $5, $10 million, a customized portfolio might be a better solution for you than a generalized portfolio.
I also think it's important because people hear target retirement funds and they're like, "Oh, those things are trash," and I'm like, because they've looked at or they've seen maybe in their 401k. There's some expensive version of a target retirement fund. We have an asterisk that we put on this recommendation. We like indexed target retirement funds. We talk about that constantly on the shows. The biggest providers of these type of investments are your Fidelity Investments, your Charles Schwab, your Vanguard. Go look at these versions to do your due diligence and figure out what's appropriate for you. And you're going to see these things are practically free. They don't have commissions, because that's what everybody's always like, these guys only recommend index funds because that's how we get paid. I'm like, you don't know how the investment marketplace works. You realize that's the whole power of index investing, is that the internal expenses are low. Most index funds are offered through no load, meaning no commission type structures.
No transaction fees.
So there's those things don't even that doesn't even fit. So go check it out. We like the indexed version of target retirement funds because Bo nailed it. It's all you have to come up with is answer two questions: is how much can I save? When do I need it? They'll do the rest. It's the best introduction to investing because then all you have to do is focus on the behavior, habit of creating your army of dollar bills.
That's great. And obviously, again, if this is someone, if it's a large windfall and it's someone who maybe has not had any experience with that level of wealth before, and or they're young or whatever the case may be, it's not a horrible time to get a second opinion, to ask a professional advisor, hey, what should I do with this money? How should I navigate this inheritance? If you are thinking about hiring a financial advisor, we have a resource on our website. You can go to moneyguide.com/resources, and we literally have a list of questions that you should ask your advisor. Are you a fiduciary? How do you get paid? What services do you... We walk you through an interview checklist to make sure that you're aligning yourself with an individual or a firm that's going to be able to provide you the best service for what your needs are. All right, this next question, this is a Facebook question. This is from Sean. Sean said, love this channel. Thank you, Sean. Do you recommend a VUL, that's a variable universal life, for someone in their early 30s who is maxing out all retirement accounts, 401k, Roth IRA, or the two he listed, and is investing in the market? So basically what we're saying is, hey, should I go in this place, I'm young, where I start doing this like advanced insurance thing? Now, this is our opinion. I'm going to start this, Brian. You can kind of fill in the gaps
you have
here.
the background.
We love life insurance, right? The purpose of life insurance is that if there are people that are depending on your income for their well-being, if you have a spouse or if you have children or if you have parents or if there is debt that is required for you to pay back or whatever it is, if there's an insurable need in your life, life insurance is a great way to protect against your premature death. That is what it's there for. In our opinion, in our world, we like for insurance to be insurance, and we like for investments to be investments. We think that when you begin to combine those two and you start looking at permanent life insurance, whole life insurance, universal life, variable universal life, fill in the blank on the product that you're looking at, rather than letting those two distinct things do their job very, very well, you start blending them together and you end up with suboptimal strategies. You either have really poor, expensive insurance product or really expensive investments that aren't going to grow your wealth in the way that you want to. So I think, again, my opinion, especially for young folks, there are very, very limited circumstances where some form of permanent insurance makes more sense than buying very low-cost term life insurance and investing the difference, following the financial order of operations, maxing out all the retirement accounts, and then just doing the boring old build up your bridge account, build up your after-tax account that you'll be able to access.
I do think that this question, though, is getting closer to the appropriate suitability and the fact that somebody who's fully maxed out all tax-favored investments,
sure,
the Roth IRAs, the employer-provided plan, because it is one of those things where a variable universal life with that investment component built into it does get the tax-deferred growth. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what, so many people are sold these products that don't max out all these other things. But I would, I still don't know if I'm willing to endorse or recommend that type of strategy just because I want you to be fully aware of go look at what it costs. What is that tax-deferred benefit costing you to get the tax-deferred growth from an expense standpoint? And then also fast forward it to what does this look like when you actually want to utilize this money? Because one of the problems I see with legacy issues with these products is that, and by the way, we have the same problem with IRAs too. Traditional is that you don't get a step up in basis in these type of products. Anything that's growing tax deferred, the government's going to get their money at some point. That's right. And a lot of people, you're avoiding current taxes, but you're getting this problem down the road of how do we get it out of there when I pass away?
Oh, but Brian,
it's an issue.
There's a great solution. You just take out a policy loan and then you borrow the money from yourself.
The problem I don't like about loan strategies, by the way, when marriage is one of those things. We see people, and I don't agree with these comments, but one of the comments you see consistently whenever we talk about marriages and money is there's always people and they go, stay the heck away from marriage. It's the quickest way, when somebody takes your money and steals from, when you get divorced. You see this comment, you realize when you do a loan strategy on a life insurance product, a permanent life insurance, that is the essential. You're marrying the insurance company because there's no way for you to separate from that product
Until death
until
do you
until
part.
death do you part, because you either have to pay back the loan, which is going to be hard because why would you take the loan otherwise, even though it's supposedly tax free, or you have to die. And that just that bothers me, and because as we know, cost of insurance actually increases the older you get because, there's more expenses and other things going on because you're getting closer to the grave. That cost of insurance when you're in your 70s and 80s might become high enough that your cash value is not growing as fast as you originally projected or expected, and then you want to get rid of it, and you're like, well, gosh, I shouldn't have taken those tax-free loans because now I'm married to this policy.
That's right.
There's some unintended consequences. So I'm not, I was just trying to, because this is nuanced stuff that it has to be very personalized. We can't give that type of guidance. That's the disclaimer on this. This is very personalized. I will say from a suitability, somebody who's maxed out retirement is getting closer to when these products are more appropriate. But I still don't know if that's the bridge that I'm willing to say this is a good idea. So I'm just going to give you all the caveats, the disclaimers, and things you ought to consider. And then just know that this is also something, if you're getting that level of success where you can max out and you have these pots of money, you're trying to figure out the most efficient strategy for you, probably doesn't hurt to have somebody in your corner that's not getting paid a large commission off the products that they're recommending to you. So, but you might want to talk to an advisor that could give you an objective view on that.
This next one, Brian, you're going to love this question, I think. This is from Carlos. Carlos said, my spouse and I are 23 and 24, recent graduates. So starting out life together, which is great.
Awesome.
We make $160,000, and maxing out our accounts would put us at a savings rate of over 35%.
That's incredible.
Should we save 35% plus, or can we just save 25% and move on to step A to foo? And this is the parentheses. We want to put in a pool and do the yard on our new house. How should they think about approaching this at 23 and 24?
Oh, man. I know, because
it's a hard one. It's a hard one.
I mean, letter of the law, you have done everything you're supposed to under financial order of operations. You should be allowed at 23 and 24 if you're saving.
Now, remember, they're recent graduates, so they have not actually begun building their army of dollar bills. They are looking and say, okay, if we max everything out, it's going to put us at 35% plus. Should we stop at 25% and do other things like put in a pool, do the new yard? Let me ask you a question, Brian.
Well, but here's the thing. I think because this is getting into the notorious B.I.G. and Puff Daddy, where mo money, mo problems, and those type of things. I'm probably, because was Notorious B.I.G. on that one, that track?
Fact check that, Nick.
Daniel, you're my expert.
He says he's nodding.
Yeah,
he's
so,
nodding.
But mo money, mo problems is that a 23 and 24-year-old, man, swimming pool and landscaping in the backyard. I worry about, do you turn a financial mutant into a spender? So just be careful. There's a fine line there, because I still think you look in the mirror and go, what am I going to need at 40 and 50, like this version? I think you just have to be careful with, it's just, I don't want you to go buy the ski boat, the jet skis, and all these things, and then you find out that, oh my goodness, I had a great thing, but I didn't respect the hedonic treadmill. I didn't respect all the things that could build up. Plus, I built so many toys in the background that required maintenance and support that maybe I blew up my financial mutant skill set.
I think it's wonderful that you guys are starting your life together and that you are having these conversations, thinking about this. I am no longer 23 or 24, to the surprise of a lot of you out there. I'm a little bit older than that. But I was 23, 24 at one time, and I am so thankful that in the very first house that I bought, I didn't do things like put a pool in or spend a lot of money on the backyard, because life circumstances changed. We ended up moving to a different area and buying a different house and growing the family. And so I think you have to do sort of a cost-benefit analysis. I don't know how much a pool costs at other parts of the country. I know how much they are here. Well, if you think about how much a pool costs, let's say it was $80,000, $100,000, I don't know how much a pool costs, but say it was a six-figure sum that it's going to cost you to put that in. and look at the opportunity cost of that 6 figures not working for you over the next 30 or 40 years of your working career, and then how much of that cost will you recoup? And the question I would have is this a decision that makes sense for us to make right now in our current age and stage of life? Now, you may decide that it is. You may be in the home that you're going to be in for the next 40, 50 years. You're the only person that knows that, but that is a very big decision to make as one of your very early first decisions as a newlywed married couple.
I'm going to give up, because we spend so much time on the analytics. I'm going to give more of a emotional or something, just as a guy who's got a few decades under my belt, and the fact that I think back to myself in my early 20s in college. My shower, because I lived with a bunch of guys, I mean, it was gross. I mean, I could shower and sleep anywhere, and sleep in a hotel room with 6 other people on the floor, and it
like
all
a baby.
seemed reasonable and fine. But as I've gotten older and had more success, I don't know when I became so soft, but now, I mean, there's this journey you go on where the nicer you take yourself, and this is where I talked about hedonic treadmill, is that, the human condition absorbs and accepts your surroundings so quick that it will make your head spin. This is what I always talk about with anybody who has windfall, lottery winning, sells companies, and so forth. I try to coach them a little bit as don't do too many of the great things all at once, because you're going to take away some of the fun parts of life as going through and accomplishing and building what that fulfillment, which leads to long-term happiness. And if you do everything in your 20s, you might find that you got to the top of the mountain, and then you're like, well, now what?
Well, what's next?
And that's the only thing that I caution for a 23 and 24. That sounds so, because financially, I don't think it's the worst thing, but I just worry, where do you go from here? This is why I say when parents give their kids a Mercedes in high school, I'm like, what are you doing?
Setting up a hard
Your
path.
kids are not going to get that, aha, holy cow. Because, I mean, my first used car that I bought for myself, then my first new car I bought myself, then my first luxury car I bought for myself. Each one of those are things on a journey that creates a life that's pretty daggum awesome. But you will get soft. Because now I don't know when, because coming from not money to having money, and now I look at the hotel rooms we stay in, I'm like, are we ruining our kids? Because it is one of those things. So a 23 and a 24-year-old, I'm trying not to get so deep and philosophical, but I want you to chart out your life. Go enjoy life. But when I talk about the trips I took to Europe in my 20s, I talk about a bedazzled basic trip where we're dragging suitcases through cobblestone streets, getting ripped off by the locals for all the cab fares and all the other things, because you just don't know any better. Versus, I think about now my 40-something self, where you have the tour guides and you're staying in the plush hotels. I don't want to get away from how great it was experiencing those things in my 20s, and now being able to come back in my 40s and do it in a completely different way. So that's not an analytical or financial, it's more of a philosophical of make sure you're building yourself enough ways to keep scratching the itch of success, of that, man, it's fun to be here and what a journey we've gone on.
I don't think I'm going to add anything to that. I think that was great. This next question is from Tony Rose. Tony Rose says, what is the strategy when trying to do a backdoor Roth IRA? She says, now I'm over the income limit. But there's a current traditional IRA balance. Do I convert the outstanding IRA balance first? So that is one probable solution. If you have an outstanding traditional IRA that has pre-tax dollars, one of the things that you can do is you can convert those pre-tax dollars to Roth. However, you need to be aware that if you do that, that is a taxable event. So if you have a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 traditional IRA, and you convert it to Roth, that's going to be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of taxable income that you will have to report and will have to pay taxes on this year. Now, what that will allow you to do in the future is to do non-taxable Roth conversions, but I don't know that that might be the perfect solution right now, especially depending on your income tax bracket.
Yeah, I mean, the Roth conversions, why do people have to worry about this is once you get over an income threshold, you're not allowed to contribute to Roth IRAs anymore. You can still do Roth 401ks, Roth 403bs. They have no No income limits, but Roth IRAs do have an income limit. But there's weird opportunity in the fact that as long as you don't have any other IRA assets except for like inherited IRAs, you can still contribute to a traditional IRA and non-deductible IRA contribution, and then convert it to a Roth IRA. And there's pretty much zero tax impact because you had no IRA assets. Now, the way the tax law is set up is that they're going to ask you, hey, 12/31 last year, January 1st this year, did you have any IRA assets? And if you say yes, they're going to make you prorate
That's right.
that conversion, meaning it's taxable, a portion of it. So that's why you have to get rid of these assets. So that's the first thing, just to answer the question. Bo is right, and this is what the viewer or listener is alluding to, is that they could just convert it all this year, pay taxes on it. There's also another avenue, is that you can look at your ERISA covered plans, your 401ks, your 403bs, and see if you can roll those assets into it, so that then next year, when you want to consider doing a Roth conversion, they look at your year-end balance and go, hey, you got rid of all those assets.
Yep.
So that's the strategy.
Way to do it.
That's a way to do it, is you either pay the tax on the traditional, or you try to figure out, is there another avenue to roll those assets into so they don't go into that calculation with the IRS.
Now, let's throw two little caveats on there, though. How do you make the consideration of whether this makes sense for you? Because you want to be careful. Maybe you have a large IRA rollover from a previous employer, and it's multiple six figures, and you say, okay, well, great, I want to do this back to a Roth so I can do $6,000 or $7,000 a year. Well, you want to be careful taking this unconstrained IRA that you might have access to the entire investment universe and really low-cost options.
Great point.
And roll it into a really crummy 401k plan that doesn't have a lot of diversification and has really high expenses or has insurance sub-accounts. It may not make sense to move over that much wealth to simply open up the ability to do a $6,000, $7,000 backdoor IRA contribution every year. So that's the first thing. You want to make sure that you're not letting the tax tail wag the investment dog over your entire portfolio. Here's the other thing you want to make sure of, and we actually learned this through experience. In almost all circumstances, whenever you roll money into a 401k or into a 403b or into an ERISA-sponsored plan, generally speaking, you always have the option at some point in the future to move that money out of the plan again. So if you move it in and then a couple years later you decide you want to move it back to the IRA for some reason, you can do that. But not in all circumstances. You want to make sure you check with your plan provider, go read the summary plan description to know, am I actually able, if I roll in $50,000, $100,000, $500,000 into this plan, can I also roll that money back out in the future, or do I have to be terminated and leave employment before I can get back to those dollars? Because if it captivates those dollars, it may not make sense to do that. So you just want to make sure that you measure 2 or 3 times, cut once, so you don't make a bad decision. And this is a very complicated strategy to begin implementing. It's a great time to consider hiring a professional advisor if you are thinking about these, because again, you'd rather do it right, do it light, do it wrong, do it long. So I would advise that.
Or Carol sent me this great saying, because measure twice, cuss once.
Cuss once, I like that. That's great. That must be a saying in Texas or in Tennessee or in Texas. Here we go. Here's you ready for the next question. This one is from Jacob. What's a good strategy to strike a balance between mitigating risk and holding your company stock, parentheses, that you believe in long term, when it makes up a moderate portion of your overall portfolio? So it sounds like Jacob must be someone who has either an employee stock purchase plan or has RSUs or options, or maybe the matching in his 401k happens in the form of company stock. How do you balance being very bullish and very comfortable and very excited about the future growth of your company stock, but also not taking on too much risk? How do you navigate those two?
Yeah, there's some backdrop things you need to first understand, is that you figure out how you feel about your company. Is this a 5% of my total net worth, or is this a 10% of my total net worth? We get nervous. You get in danger zone once you're over 5% of your net worth is not only in your human capital, where you're getting all your W-2 wages and so forth, but also all your investment capital's there. But also understand there's unique circumstances where people work for, really fast-growing technology, biotech, other really, there's a bullish opportunity in the long term. Maybe it pushes you beyond 5%, and that pushes me into this second planning thing that you need to understand. Are there some unique tax benefits that I can go deeper into 5 to 10% ownership, because maybe I need to hold this for 12 months if we're talking about like RSUs or other things that give me or employee stock purchase plan. These things, it doesn't make sense to start just flipping them if there's a tax smart strategy. Or, and this is I'm going to let him do the cleaning up on this because I did the first cut. He's going to come in with the implement and cut the wider cut, is that maybe you really do need to be careful more of the balance between what am I risking by having too much in one employer.
Yeah, so sometimes you can control it and sometimes you can't control it, because I think most of us, when we work for an employer, we feel pretty good about it. I mean, we would not likely work there unless we had an affinity for it and thought that they were doing good things and thought that they were moving in a positive trajectory. So I think one of the things we have to always be aware of is that we probably have a little bit of home bias when it comes to our employer. We think that our employer is the one that has the technology that's going to change the world, or that's going to be the first to market, or that's going to fill in the blank. But time has shown us over and over again that's not always the case. And we can talk about all kinds of things that happened back early on in your career with major corporations that people were super excited about that did not turn out because of all kinds of different misdealings. Well, if you had all your wealth tied up in there, even though you may have been gung-ho 100% for that company, things outside of your control could have very much impacted your wealth. So I think what you have to do is you have to have a strategy around what's my current exposure to the company, what is the future exposure coming in. If I am an incentive receiver, am I getting more options and more RSUs, or if I have unvested holdings, or if I'm going to continue to participate in the ESPP, I'm basically on this treadmill, right? So one of the things about being on a treadmill is some of the new treadmill has to come on. That's the future stuff. You have to make sure some of the others falling off, or else it's just going to be stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking in the background. And what once was 10% of your total portfolio can very quickly become 20, 30, 40% of your portfolio. You ought to have a strategy on how you begin to reduce that, how you begin to build wealth outside of that single concentrated holding.
My experience share, because you alluded to it, was that, and what's funny is probably a lot of you, if you're younger, I'm going to say a name like Lucent Technologies, and you're like, what company was that? And I will tell you, any of the excitement you feel now for the Googles, the Netflixes, the Apples, and those things, back in the early 2000s, you would have felt that way about Lucent Technologies. But I'm telling you how short our memory and attention spans are. Lucent was based in Atlanta. The firm I previously worked with a lot of Lucent executives. And I can tell you that every one of them thought that their stuff, this to the moon is not new to this generation, by the way. Every one of those Lucent executives thought they were going to the moon too. And no, a lot of seven-figure wealth evaporated overnight because some bad policies. Because remember, I've said this on this show and I've said it on other shows. Horrible news, it's an extrovert in the fact that you always see market volatility, you will see bad real estate marketplaces, and you will see bad unemployment and job work experiences all happening. Why do you think they say misery loves company? So just make sure that you have a plan, even if you're working for one of those high flyers, because they, what fangs, whatever, all the cool sayings that everybody has about the hot stocks of the moment, they too can become the Lucent Technologies of the future.
Right. This next question is from Sam. Sam says, I love the channel. My wife and I are blessed with good paying jobs. Our combined salaries disqualify us from Roth IRA. We max out our 401k and HSA and 1 year of savings, so Merchant Reserve. What should be our next move? Or let me ask a different question. How might they know what their next move should be?
Well, think about that. They pretty much have knocked out. Now, what I would ask is what's going on in their life? Because, they've made it through steps 1 through 7. Yep. So have they started funding the kids' college? Have they started figuring out do they want to own something outside of just liquid portfolio assets in the stock market and so forth? And then, hey, by the way, this is one that I get a lot of flack over. where the hell would their mortgage interest?
Sure.
You know, do you have some low interest mortgage debt that you could be knocking out? I think somebody in that type of situation, congratulations. You now get to start really thinking about this from a financial planning perspective of what's my legacy? What's my why? What are we trying to build? When do I want to retire? Am I checking all the boxes? Somebody in that type of situation, I mean, you're the master of the universe. You just have to figure out what you want that universe to look like.
Now, I want to make sure we're not giving them too much credit because they said that they're maxing out the 401k and the HSA. No mention of an IRA or Roth, so I would see it says that you are not Roth eligible, but could you be doing backdoor Roths? Is that an opportunity for you? And then they said 1 year of savings. I'm going to assume that's the emergency reserve, which is healthy. We think that once you've exhausted all of your retirement options, your tax deferred, meaning you're maxing out your 401k or 403b or 457, and you've maxed out all your tax-free options, which are your Roth IRAs and your HSAs, there's nothing wrong with opening up a taxable account, just a regular run-of-the-mill individual or joint brokerage account that, yes, you'll pay tax every year as it has dividends and income and you generate capital gains, but they're at favorable rates. There's nothing wrong with building up that third bucket. That would be the next place I would stop after I've exhausted all of the retirement opportunities. And then I would do that until I hit that 25% gross income savings rate. And then you can move on to your step 8, which is prepaid future expenses, or step 9, which is prepaying low interest debt. I think people get so amazed. They're like, oh, it's just a brokerage account. It sounds so boring. It's not tax advantage. There's nothing. It doesn't have to be sexy, because what's going to be really, really sexy is when you get to retirement and you have your 3 distinct buckets and you get to pick and choose which bucket you pull from and how much, and you control your financial universe at that time.
That's great. So you basically, because it was step 7, I guess, was not clear, because that's what Bo just came back, cleaned it up, put more respect on step 7, which is the hyper-accumulation, the 3-bucket strategy. Step 8 is the college and so forth for the kiddos. And then step 9 is the mortgage debt. So it sounds like they're well on their way to creating financial independence. Congratulations, fellow financial mutants.
Now, this next question is kind of in the same vein as financial order operation. This is from Jacob, and Jacob said, okay, so if 25% savings rate is hit while only in step 5 of the FOO. Now, step 5 is Roth and HSA, so I wonder if Jacob actually meant step 6, because we get that a lot. What if I hit my 25% in step 6? Can I then go to later steps? Like if I'm maxing out my retirement account and that gets me to the 25, well, then can I start going and do 529 accounts? Or then can I start prepaying debt? Or should I move forward before I complete step 6? That's a question we get often.
Yeah, so this is, because think about it, guys. For anybody, it's really on where your income in your household is. For people who are 80,000 and less, there's a very high likelihood you will actually make it through. If your household income is less than around $80,000, you're going to make it through all the way through hyperaccumulation, where you're going to be saving 25% of your income, but yet you will not have maxed out the 19,500 that you could do on your 401ks, 403bs. I think that is okay. I mean, because that's why because if somebody who's making less than $80,000 of household income, you're also closer to the social safety net of Social Security and other things. So it's going to be okay if you then transition into, saving for the kids' college in step 8 and so forth. It's more of the people, I'm worried about the financial mutants once your income is $80,000 and greater. That's why when I give the guidance of don't even count your employer match if your total household income is over $200,000, is because the further you get above 80 and then 6 figures, you're going to find in retirement more and more of that responsibility falls on your shoulders. Right. You're away from the social safety net. The employer match is not going to do as much as it possibly could. So you better start saving. And that's why we have bucket number 7, which is the 3-bucket strategy. That's why you have to build that bridge with after-tax savings. But somebody said, that's why you have to look at this and ask yourself, what type of financial mutant am I? Where's my household income? And yes, there's going to be, and that's what I love about the financial order operations plan. It doesn't matter if you're a lower or an average income versus a high income person. These steps work for everybody. It's just that you might get there in a little different choose your own adventure style because you have different options because of social safety net of Social Security, Medicare, and other things versus more and more falls upon you and the tax structure. And that's why I also love the hyperaccumulation for higher income people, because it does allow you to legally manipulate the tax code later, because you have different tax buckets to pull off of as you get access to needing to live off those assets.
Guys, thank you so much for letting us be a part of your financial life. We love getting into these questions. If we did not get to your question today, don't worry. We save it in our question bank. If you think of a question later that you have not submitted, go out to our website. Go to moneyguy.com, go to boundwealth.com, submit the question, and we're going to keep loading you up. If you've not had a chance yet to go check out our website, moneyguy.com/resources. We have tons of free deliverables for you. We have the financial order of operations deliverable. We have a tax guide. We have how powerful of your dollars, how to refinance a mortgage. Anything that you could want, there's a chance that we have something on our deliverable page that could be valuable for you. And we even have a course you can go check out. If you want to know more about the actual financial order of operations course, go check out learn.moneyguy.com. Thank you for letting us be a part of your financial lives.
Bo almost let it slip. He let us close this thing out without me teasing one more great thing that's coming this Friday, guys.
Oh, good one.
We have, just like you guys loved our TikTok React video. I mean, I had no idea that you guys loved our nerdy reactions to stuff. We have another React video coming out this Friday. I want you to make sure you tune in. Give us some love on that. We love creating content. Love that this show celebrated us getting the YouTube play bar. Just keep subscribing, keep supporting. We're going to keep creating content. You guys are the rocket fuel that makes all this possible. I'm your host, Brian Preston, Mr. Bo Hansen. Money Guy team out.